Welcome to another Doors to Deals episode. I'm your host, Caleb Davis. We're here with episode number 107, and we have the very own Jack McCarthy. I'm super excited to have Jack on today. I've been wanting to interview and do a podcast with Jack for probably the last year. I think I talked to him about almost doing our own. So here today we have Jack. Jim's with me too. Welcome, Jack.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, it's we've known each other for about 4 years now, correct?
Yeah.
And I think we always knew who each other were, and through a mutual friend named Murray Keller, who continually, I don't know if Murray told you as much as he did me that like, hey, you need to meet this guy, but I think it was a weekly basis for a while.
Yeah, it was the same. I kept hearing from Murray, like, you need to talk to Caleb. You need to talk to Caleb. You guys would get along really well. And then somehow, I forget where, but we got connected.
Yeah, I think it might have been like a KWYP event or something. And then a year ago, we kind of jumped on board. Yeah. So you have a really, really cool story, I think, and I'm sure the audience is probably going to love this. Tell us a little bit about how you got started into real estate and like some of the first introduction for you to this business.
Yeah. So I have a lot of family that does real estate, mix of like investors. And then my uncle at the time, when I was in college, was a broker for a Keller Williams office here in St. Louis. And so I always kind of knew real estate was something I was interested in from a pretty young age. I remember reading like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I feel like for a lot of people is like the one book that kind of makes something click in their mind that real estate is kind of a pathway to almost like a better life or kind of a dream life, if you will. So I read that like freshman year of college, and I was like, hey, this real estate thing sounds pretty cool. And to be honest, I got my real estate license when I was 19 as like a incoming sophomore in college, primarily because I thought it was going to be something that would look good on job applications. I was thinking about going into like consulting or investment banking out of college, were like the two career fields if you had asked me as like an 18-year-old, that's what I thought I was going to do with my life. And then the more I kind of started to do real estate, it started off really just making kind of cold calls from my dorm room just to make some referral income. But I kind of realized like really quickly, I liked real estate. I kind of liked sales. I liked talking to people. I knew that was something that I wanted to do, was be like people focused, whatever career I wanted to do. I wanted to do something where I was working with people on a daily basis and not, sitting in front of a computer looking at documents or like going over spreadsheets. Like I like all that stuff, but it's just, I like the people and human interaction a lot more. And that's something with real estate you definitely get.
Investment banker turned real estate mogul. Yeah. That's going to be your title when you're like 40 years old.
Well, I looked at the hours they put in and I was like, I don't really want to work like 100 hours a week. So I decided to go into real estate and work, like 85, 90 hours a week.
So this is like kind of a crazy little story that you just made me think of about the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I somehow buried this down in my brain. But when I was 13, we took a road trip to Florida, and the entire road trip, my dad listened to Rich Dad, Poor Dad on audio. And I at 13 years old, had no idea that I was literally getting gold nuggets bombed into my brain. And I thought about that a couple weeks ago. I remembered it. We were at this conference. I'm like, holy cow. So people, if you're listening, have your kids read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
If you get anything out of today, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's one of the best books, I think, for mindset that you could ever give to a teenager.
Yeah, and it just gets them thinking about money a little differently. Like I definitely grew up in a household like much more traditional, where it was, go to college, get a degree, maybe go to grad school too, come out of there with a 9-to-5 job where you work there for 30 years and retire with the retirement plan, 401k, all that stuff. So like all the passive income and like owning rental properties and building wealth that way, those were all like really new concepts for me. And it kind of just opened my eyes that maybe there's a different path out there than just go work at a company and, kind of retire with the gold watch.
Yep. Yeah. So you hit the ground running, making cold calls. And I kind of love this because people haven't done this for a while, but it's going to come back. What was your very first like lead source that you were doing?
So it was through a CRM called Sync. So basically with that CRM, they were doing just like Google leads essentially is what they were. She was basically an agent in my office who I connected with when I was home on like a Thanksgiving break or something. My uncle put me in touch with her, said, hey, she's just got too many leads coming in from Google. There are these online leads, if you're lucky, you'll probably convert 1 out of every 50 people you call. So like, just setting that expectation up front with me that you're not going to get business out of every single lead. But I was just told from day one, like, oh, this is how you do real estate. You just make the phone calls, you talk to people. And so they were all like Google leads. They were just registrations on this agent's website for, wanted to look at some houses. So it was pretty, they were somewhat warmer leads because they were all inbound leads. So they had already registered on the site. So it made it a little easier. However, it was still, I was getting a lot of the like, really funny like website registrations. Like I remember one was like Patty O Furniture was the name. So like you still always get that. But for me, it was just really the time thing. I could make way more money, I figured, doing cold calls for like 3 to 5 hours a week from a dorm room than I would if I took on like a lot of my friends did like fast food jobs or like front desk at the gym type jobs where it was just like, $8-9 an hour, and they would have to work there, 20, 30 hours a week to be able to make enough money to like pay bills. So for me, the time and like my dollar per hour, I think ended up coming out to like $50 an hour for what I was doing cold calling based on like the referrals that I was generating for this agent.
So I've never talked to you about this. This is crazy. I actually started out, my very first lead source was YLopo, and they
Yeah.
were online leads and web form. They were through social media though, and people did the same thing about like just the most ridiculous names that some of them I can't even say on the podcast.
I was going to say, I try to pick a clean one with patio furniture because a lot of the other ones are a little bit more R-rated.
Yeah. I would call them, and literally I would ask for that name just being funny. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hi, and I have one I want to say because I remember the conversation. It was Jack Mehoff. So I called him and I was like, hey, is Jack Mehoff there? I just want to see if you're still interested in buying a house at 1234 Main Street. And the dude starts cracking up laughing. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, dude, you filled out a web form with that name. I got to call you.
Yeah, I think Jack submitted a lead through the site I was working at the time too.
Yeah. Dude, we probably called the same guy. He's just
Apparently
trolling
there's
both of
a lot of Jacks around, right?
Right.
us. It's I don't know. To me, like something about starting out, just pounding the phone, makes the rest of your real estate career easier. So everyone knew who starts. I'm like, you got to go through the tribulation. You got to hit the fire of getting told no 50 times, and then the rest of the career just seems so much easier.
So
Yeah, well, I think like deep down, I don't think anyone really enjoys, unless you're like sick and twisted. I don't think anyone truly enjoys like pounding out a bunch of cold calls on a daily basis. The fun part though is when you do get through all the no's and you finally get that one that's like converts. Like that's what I really liked, was just like the chase of finding that next person. And like I agree. I think every new agent should start out calling some sort of like cold or like especially phone call lead generation, because when you can master just like the cold lead generation to some random person who maybe doesn't even remember that they submit a registration for your site because it was 11:30 at night and they were 2 glasses of wine in, so they don't even remember that they submit. So when you can convert those kind of people, when it's like not a warm connection, when you get that referral from a friend or family member, it is just that much easier to convert it. So like starting out, I thought it was a great spot. Like in hindsight, it was a really good spot for me to like learn, because it's also pretty low risk too. Like if I ended up saying a bad thing on the phone, it was a random stranger. They're not going to know me. They're not going to remember me 15 minutes after I hang up. So versus when you're trying to start out and call just your friends and family, if you mess up or do something wrong, like they might remember it. It might leave a bad taste in their mouth. So for me, I really liked starting out with that cold lead gen.
Yeah, I also think learning on a stranger is a lot better. And then you made a comment about the chase. So people used to ask me, because I would be in the KW office in Illinois 8 hours a day on the phone. So people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, I always loved like the chase of trying to date a girl. Like that was something that excited me when I was younger. And I'm like, the only other thing in life that's ever gave me that feeling is trying to chase a lead to sell them a house. Like it literally was like being in a bar trying to chase a girl, and I loved it. Because you get told no 50 times, but when you get the one yes, it's just like, I won, let's go. My whole day paid off.
Yeah, I almost like didn't even care once I got like the signed buyer's agreement or listing agreement. It was almost like, fun part's kind of over. Now I actually have to like do work. Like,
I literally had the same mindset around it. Now we just need to figure out how to take that out of our minds and teach that to others.
Sure. So those of you that have never listened in, normally we don't talk about jack me off and picking up chicks at bars. On these
are real life stories that we can.
Man, we hit on everything in this episode.
All right, so I know you were big into the expired game, and you were a hot agent out the gate early. What are some of the things that you did early on that really helped you shine above other agents?
Well, I think with expired specifically, like that's definitely a unique ball game when it comes to lead gen, just because it's so competitive. So for me, like I like to kind of I followed a script, and it was a script that came out of Bold at the time through Keller Williams. And what I think really helped me start to convert leads was when I kind of like started putting my own personality on the script. So I really like to diffuse with humor, especially when you're calling expireds. Like, I feel like the more you can kind of acknowledge, like, yeah, I know it's kind of ridiculous that I'm calling you. You've gotten 14 other calls from agents today. Like, I'm sure you're like wanting to throw your phone through a wall right now. So the more you can kind of like diffuse with humor and like somebody be like, I feel like too many agents, when they get that like pushback from somebody, when it's like, hey, this is not, I don't want you to keep calling me. How do you people keep getting my number? When you just kind of laugh and say like, oh, I'm just another one of these vulture agents out here trying to get your listing. Are you still looking to sell your house? Like, you kind of come different than every other agent that's just sticking verbatim to a script. And that's what really started to help me convert them a lot more, is when I let myself kind of go off script and have fun with it a little bit, and use humor to kind of acknowledge the fact that, yeah, I am calling you just like every other agent. However, I can build a little bit better rapport than those other agents will, because I'm sounding much more like a human and not just like, I remember when I was first calling them, I got hung up on a lot because people thought I was a robot, because I was sounding so like robotic, and I started like recording myself, and I was like, I legitimately do sound like a recording right now. So I knew like early on, okay, I got to change something in how I'm sounding, maybe like add a laugh into my script. Like I just basically started, instead of being like, hi, I'm curious where you're planning on moving to when your house sells. I changed my script to, hey, I'm sure you're getting a ton of calls today. And it literally made a world of difference.
That little bit, I like to think of scripts as like guidelines.
Yeah, it's a framework. It's not meant to be something you follow down to the last letter.
Yep, you got to customize it to your personality and figure out what works for you. And the people that fail when they're doing scripts, they follow it to the T. And I never see those people who are like, oh no, I have to be exact with the script. They don't do as well as people who get funny with it or get unique.
Yeah.
All right. So then getting into, you started working with some investor clients along the line too, right? And so let's talk about that. How'd you find investor clients? How were you able to provide value to investor clients? And where'd you go in that route?
Hey guys, for those of you that are local to St. Louis, I wanted to make sure you knew about an amazing resource that we have to help do some extra deals. You can email our team at deals@threedoors.com. And just so you know, we do deals with other investors all the time. Like, it's been hundreds and hundreds over the years, and we've averaged over 100 deals with other investors per year for over the last 5 years. We can straight up buy the deal if you have a wholesale under contract that you want to sell. If you need funding to finance a flip, or like you're doing a BRRRR strategy, we have funding available for you. If you're trying to wholesale a deal, we're doing JV wholesale deals with other wholesalers that, quite frankly, some of the deals we're putting together for a beginner or an intermediate investor, they'd probably be walking away from, because we have systems and processes, and we have buyers in place that are paying top dollar for these properties. So make sure you use this resource. And the best way to get and the easiest way is to just send us an email, deals@threedoors.com. All right, back to the episode.
You started working with some investor clients along the line too, right? And so let's talk about that. How'd you find investor clients? How were you able to provide value to investor clients? And where'd you go in that route?
Yeah, so in fact, I was actually talking about this with an agent today, but I started working with investors pretty early on. And it was because, when you're not super experienced, The one thing I did have was because I was an econ major and I've always been interested in finances, is I did have a high level, I felt like, of financial knowledge. So like when it came to like evaluating a deal, running comps, projecting rents, things like that, I felt like I was pretty good at that, just because that's naturally kind of what I'm inclined to. And then when I was like thinking about with my coach at the time, what is my value proposition as somebody who's pretty new to the business? At the time I didn't have like years of experience. I couldn't say, hey, I've sold this many houses, I know what I'm doing. The one thing I really had, and the one thing investors I felt like really valued, was time and speed. So like if a deal came up like today, and it gets posted on one of the Facebook pages around St. Louis, and an investor texted me and wanted to go see that or wanted comps on it, when I was starting out, I could get them those comps within like an hour or two. So for investors, like that's a huge value, right? When you can be first to a deal or like first to have your analysis done so you can get an offer in really, really quickly. Those were the things that I felt like I really brought to the table. And that's why starting out, I was able to kind of get business from investors, because I was able to provide value. It wasn't necessarily my experience that they needed, because I feel like a lot of investors on average know more than the average realtor about doing deals. So like I found from talking with investors, they didn't really want me to like necessarily know every single thing about the deal. They were going to run their numbers independently. They didn't really need that. What they needed was speed of access to the home to go look at the place, and speed of information to get them comps or to get them any information that they might not be able to get on their own.
Yeah, there's a weird sentiment where agents like, and I don't mean this in a bad way, a lot of agents are like, oh no, I know more than the investor. But typically investors do know more than the agent, because if an investor's wrong by 10 grand, he's out 10 grand.
Exactly.
If an agent is wrong by 10 grand, they're out, is it $300 in commission?
Not even,
I mean,
right?
So an investor has to be so precise to flip houses and do deals, or have a lot more safety nets on their contracts to be able to get out than, say, a particular an agent. So I do see a lot of times investors are a lot more knowledgeable, and agents, they try to think they have to be smarter than the investor. Just help them wherever you can. See where you can provide value, because every investor is different, and they can be some of the best lead sources you can have.
Yeah, well, and I think like that's just something, whatever lead source you're trying to work, whether it's investors, whether it's friends and family, open houses. I think one really important thing for any agent is don't think about what like you value personally and like what you think you bring to the table. Go ask your consumer, what can I do to be of value to you? Is there something that you can't get on your own that I can provide to you? And they'll usually tell you, like, if you just ask that direct question, even, they'll usually tell you like what they want from you. So the more you can kind of match whatever your desired client is looking for out of their agent, the better you're going to be, and like the less friction you're going to have when it comes time to kind of close them to make them your client.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you're working on buying your first investment property now, right?
Yep. Yeah. I'm hoping to have it under contract this weekend, actually.
Nice. You want to tell us a little bit about that deal?
Yeah. So it's my grandpa's house. So I'm buying it from my dad and his brother. It's going to be an awesome fixer-upper. It needs a ton of work, but it's going to be a pretty awesome fixer-upper, and it's in a great neighborhood too. So basically, plan is to buy it, move in, fix it up, make it like a live-in flip essentially, and within probably 2 years, sell it and move somewhere else, and maybe do the same thing again.
Don't sell it. Keep it.
Well,
live in it.
We'll see.
Keep it as a rental.
Yeah.
So you're going to move in it and have the house hacking per se.
Yep.
What's your mortgage going to be compared to what you pay in rent now?
Mortgage actually is going to be about the same.
Okay. But you're still going to be paying into something.
But the difference is I'm building equity because I'm buying it relatively cheaply, because it does basically need absolutely everything. The mortgage payment is going to stay about the same as what I'm paying right now in rent, which, especially right now with where the market's at, was something that's kind of important to me, because we're big. Obviously, we're talking a lot with the team on managing expenses right now. So I felt like right now, especially, I didn't want to necessarily go out with not knowing what the market's going to do in the next year. I didn't want to go out and necessarily just add, double my personal expenses overnight. So I wanted to keep things kind of the same, so that way I've got that financial security piece still there.
I like that, especially in a weird market that we're going into. You want to keep your expenses as low as possible, so that's a really, really smart move there. Cool. So what's next? I don't know if everybody knows, but now you're the director of retail at Three Doors. You're hanging out with all our agents here with us. Where do you see your investment ideas of what deals you want to do going, and like what deals are you kind of looking forward to?
Yeah, so I mean, the deals I'm most looking forward to, and it's again kind of why I mentioned that the average investor knows more than the average agent, specifically with like financing structures. So one thing that I learned really, really quickly and really attracted me to Three Doors was just being around people who, quite frankly, are smarter than me. I'm a huge believer of like the idea that if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so that was a big part of what brought me to Three Doors is I was like, I want to go back to being, for lack of a better term, like the dumbest person in the room and kind of be able to learn from Jim, Ryan, Caleb, Jason, specifically about doing deals that are subject to involving owner financing, where I don't really have to put a ton of cash into a deal and I can buy a house, just on terms and potentially, be into a deal for less than $5,000 and get a cash flowing rental and still have a rental that's making income.
Yeah, the ability to get into rentals for such low money out of pocket is so key to growing, especially early on when you don't have a large cash flow coming in and picking up so you can invest money. That's I love those deals. They're the best deals. We talk about them a lot on here. I don't have any more questions. Jim, you got some questions?
So, do you have what's the vision kind of moving forward for your investments? What are you hoping to achieve over the next few years?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to have $1 million net worth by the time I'm 30. So I'll be turning 26 in about a week. So the goal is $1 million net worth by the time I'm 30. I think it's kind of a high goal, though. I think, I think it's definitely possible. So my plan is honestly, I like selling houses. I don't think I'll ever stop being a realtor altogether, though ideally within the next 2 years or so, I would say I want to transition to focus solely on buying investment properties and kind of coaching and growing the retail team. So that's kind of my initial plan, I would say. And really it's just trying to keep doing more rental deals, doing them subject to, involving owner financing. Because those deals truly too are, I think, in my opinion, the most win-win for a seller as well. When you look at the amount of money they're going to make, I'm a huge point with me with sales is I don't ever like selling something that I don't personally believe in or I wouldn't do myself. So for me, that's why I like the owner financing deals, because to me, you're maximizing the value of that asset for yourself, even as the seller putting that house to owner financing. So that's my plan, is basically kind of do as many of those deals as I possibly can, and get my net worth over $1 million.
That's awesome. And I mean, for those of you listening in, the subject twos right now are so important because any of you realtors listening in, if you know how to do deals like this, the ramifications are saving your clients hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 30-year run. And no, that's not a too good to be true type of thing. I know we hear a lot of marketing messages that are kind of, fluff. If you know how to do a subject to deal and have a client be able to take over an existing mortgage that's at 3% when they can only get mortgages at, what are the rates now? Are they in the sevens now? What is it?
They're in the 7.5. Yeah, probably going to push 8 by end of November, I would say.
Yeah, as opposed to 8%. Literally, the cost of that house is half, or potentially less than half, over the course of 30 years by being able to do these strategies. So it's a really important tool in our tool belt that I really think all realtors should know. We've been very blessed that we've been studying this and doing this for several years now. So our team members already know how to do this. And if they don't know all the nuances, we have team members that can help them with advanced strategies, right? But yeah, so everybody listening in, what a wonderful opportunity. A homeowner, you could sell your house subject to and get more money for it. A buyer, you could save hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we kind of create a win-win. This strategy has been around a very long time too. It's just the last time it was the last time was in the 1970s when this was a more commonplace thing. So if you think about it, 50 years ago, there weren't that many real estate professionals that have been doing this for 50 plus years, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that not a whole lot of people know about, and it's something that I really think if you get the right agent, you get the right advisor, that people are going to start becoming more and more knowledgeable on it, and something that really we all should be doing, because it's going to be it's a massive win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And I would say, like, the average agent, if you haven't been in the business, like, I've only been in since 2016, and it was a completely new concept to me until I came to Three Doors. And I would say that's probably the case for the vast majority of not only agents, but I was at a training event a couple of weeks ago, and even a mortgage lender there. I had to kind of correct her on what she was saying about assumptions, because the information she knew wasn't necessarily correct. And it's just fascinating to me how so few people, like, know about how to do subject to, what that term even means, the difference between subject to and assumptions. And so, like, for any agents listening, I would say start educating yourself on that now, because if rates stay up, this is going to be a huge tool, exactly like Jim said, for your clients, both on the seller and on the buyer side. I ran into a buddy of mine who bought in 2020, and he's got a 2.8% interest rate on his mortgage right now, which, Caleb, your post the other day of, like, that's the biggest flex on the planet right now if anybody's got a mortgage rate below 3. And, like, talking with them, one of the things I mentioned was, like, if you sold your house right now, you would be able to get more money because you have that mortgage in place than your next door neighbor who's got the exact same house could get.
If he has the right professional that knows how to do it. Don't if he knows the right person that knows how to do it. But, like, yeah, that is an asset now that a lot of people are going to just, if you only know realtors that just know how to, hey, here's the listing contract, let's put it on the market and let's sell this thing. I mean, that is a massive asset that you can leverage to make tens of thousands of dollars more on your house sale too.
Yeah. And I honestly do think, I talk with, colleagues of mine in the industry all the time. And I really do think, agents that, especially as we've seen the rise of, like, iBuyers, we've seen more and more other companies kind of get in the space of home sales, that there's a lot more options out there for people, probably more than maybe ever in history, in terms of ways to sell their house, rather than just calling a realtor and having them put a sign in the yard. So I would say realtors, like, right now more than ever, need to be going on listing appointments with way more options in their tool bag than just, well, I can put a sign in the yard, I can put it up on the multiple listing service, I can have an open house, and we'll see what offers we get. Cash offers, I think, are huge to bring with you. Got owner financed offers, subject to offer, all those different things that, all the agents in our team kind of bring when we go on listing appointments. I think those are things every agent should be looking to kind of add to their meetings with sellers, because whether you like it or not, sellers are talking to iBuyers. They're seeing the commercials. If they're thinking about selling their house, they're probably going to play around and put their address in and just see what comes back. So the more options you can bring as an agent, I think, is just going to be huge, especially as the market gets a little more challenging.
I completely agree.
Absolutely.
Wise words, my friend. You must be a SLU High guy.
Yep.
Oh, man. Well, okay. So 1 million net worth by the time you're 30, you got a couple of years to do that. Anything else happening in the future? You waved a magic wand 5 years from today. What else has happened? What else are you saying?
I mean, I think owning portions of other businesses too is key. So one thing, as I've learned more about real estate and, like, building wealth, multiple income streams is a huge factor. So not just having, like, I'm a realtor and I make money off selling houses and that's it. So having multiple income streams, like, a mortgage company, a title company, other companies that are kind of real estate adjacent or realtor adjacent, like, that's a huge reason I'm with Three Doors too.
We like the revenue streams.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You got to have businesses to help your other businesses make money. All right. Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun. Good to see you guys on the Doors to Deals episode. We'll see you next week.
That's a wrap, guys. For additional resources, go to doorstodeals.com. And don't forget, we're already generating over $186,000 per month in passive income for people in our world. And we're just getting started, and we can help you out as well. So if you want to grow your passive income, we have multiple options available. The first step is for us to get to know each other better. Give us a call or send us over a text message at 314-310-4886 to get started. And finally, go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Till next time. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock doors to deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.